In Season 5 of Law & Order SVU, a prominent dermatologist beats a rape conviction by fooling a DNA test. His method involves slicing open his own arm, surgically embedding a rubber tube filled with another man's blood, and letting the technician draw a clean sample directly from his vein. If a screenwriter pitched that in a vacuum, they'd be laughed out of the room for relying on an impossible, cartoonish contrivance. But the writers didn't invent this scheme. In 1992, a physician living in Saskatchewan named Dr. John Schneeberger evaded justice for years by performing that exact surgical evasion on himself. Television producers have known for a long time that reality provides the most compelling scripts. The practice dates back to the early 1950s, pioneered by Jack Webb for the police procedural Dragnet. He hooked millions of listeners and viewers with a simple promise: the story you are about to hear is true, only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. But converting raw, chaotic reality into a cohesive television drama requires a highly specific set of tools. Showrunners have to figure out how to take actual human depravity and mold it into a predictable 45-minute entertainment product. Truth is a necessary raw material for the writer's room. Pure fiction operates within strict boundaries of believability. Human behavior does not. Writers deploy the plausible absurdity when they need a shield against audience skepticism. By grounding an extreme plot twist in a documented event, they make the unbelievable feel inevitable. Consider the Heaven's Gate tragedy of 1997. Over the course of 3 days, 39 people packed overnight bags, dressed in identical outfits, and peacefully ingested lethal doses of barbiturates. They did this believing a spaceship trailing the Hale-Bopp comet was arriving to take them home. The writers for CSI Crime Scene Investigation lifted this exact premise for an episode about a suicidal cult. By anchoring a bizarre storyline in an undeniable historical event, they bypassed the audience's natural skepticism. Sometimes the mechanism relies on a more psychological extreme. In the year 2000, a 10-year-old girl named Candace Newmaker was subjected to a controversial rebirthing therapy. 4 adults wrapped her tightly in a flannel sheet to simulate a womb, ignoring her screams for air. She suffocated to death while they sat on her. This specific, horrific brand of psychological abuse presented a ready-made thriller plot. It was so potent that 3 entirely separate crime dramas, CSI, Law & Order, and SVU, all adapted the rebirthing ritual into their own fictional storylines. Borrowing bizarre mechanics from reality grants television writers a plausibility shield. It allows them to push the outer extremes of their narrative without breaking the viewer's suspension of disbelief. The second adaptation mechanism is the social mirror. Here, the mechanics of the crime are secondary. The real focus is the philosophical or societal failure the crime exposes. In 1964, 29-year-old Kitty Genovese was stabbed to death outside her New York City apartment. Early newspaper reports claimed dozens of neighbors heard her screams and did nothing to intervene. Though the actual number of witnesses is debated today, the horror of the event birthed the psychological concept of the bystander effect. Law & Order adapted this societal dynamic for a 1996 episode. By recreating the Genovese scenario, the writers forced their fictional detectives to confront urban apathy, directly addressing the horror of collective inaction. You see the same mechanism applied to the psychology of the offenders themselves. In 1924, 19-year-old Nathan Leopold kidnapped and murdered a young boy in Chicago. Leopold believed he was a Nietzschean Superman, entirely above moral law. His accomplice, 18-year-old Richard Loeb, was an equally brilliant and wealthy young man. They didn't kill for revenge or out of desperation. They committed an execution as an intellectual experiment, simply for the thrill of seeing if they could get away with it. SVU adapted this exact scenario to explore a horrifying motive: the remorseless, unmotivated teenage killer. The fictional detectives spend the episode grappling with the terrifying reality that some violence has no rational explanation. These adaptations act as a thematic mirror. They supply a gripping plot, but they also reflect society's darkest psychological flaws back at the audience for evaluation. The third mechanism moves away from adapting specific plots and focuses on adapting the criminals themselves. This is the authentic amalgam. The creators of The Sopranos achieved a gritty, street-level realism by pulling details directly from real-world FBI wiretaps. They modeled Tony Soprano's crew after New Jersey's independent DeCavalcante family, a powerful syndicate that the 5 New York families dismissively referred to as farmers. We call this the composite blueprint technique. Instead of drafting a villain from imagination, writers funnel real-life rap sheets and wiretaps into a single silhouette. David Simon used this in The Wire, building Omar Little by blanking traits from real Baltimore figures like Donnie Andrews. Real-world criminal records provide a granular, street-level authenticity. It gives characters a texture and a rhythm of speech that a writer's room simply cannot invent from scratch. The ripped from the headlines tagline provides an essential storytelling framework, evolving far beyond its roots as a network marketing tool. Fictional narratives are bound by logic. Characters require clear motives, and plots have to make sense. Reality operates under no such restrictions. Real crimes are often chaotic, senseless, and entirely devoid of satisfying answers. Actual crimes represent the absolute, terrifying limits of human capability. They show us exactly what people are willing to do to each other when the rules of society break down. The television procedural format serves a specific psychological utility. It takes unsolved, chaotic tragedies and forces them into a tightly paced 45-minute structure where evidence makes sense and justice is predictably served. By funneling real-life atrocities into structured television, the genre provides a safe, controlled environment to process the most terrifying parts of the human experience.